Hello there, and welcome to International Insight. This is the program in which we bring you information about events happening outside the United States. For those of you who have been watching your television or checking on the internet in the last couple of weeks, you must have heard about the events happening in Nigeria, where some Islamic radicals went and have come with some innocent girls who are in secondary schools. Over 200 young girls were abducted. And all over the world today, people have been carrying placards saying, "We want our girls back. We want our girls home." But to many of you, that's all you know about the problem. The problem caused by a group called Boko Haram. Now, with me in the studio today to shed more lights into the situation is someone who knows about all these incidents and the one that has happened even before then. Because as someone who has been involved in the government, in the academic area, he has a full knowledge of several events in Nigeria. He also has been the Nigerian ambassador to Mexico and Canada. And now his opinion today is his own personal opinion, not government opinion, because he's not working for the government anymore. So all he's going to tell us today are his own personal opinion. I've also invited into the studio with me a fellow African by the name Shaka Dolo, who is an author and who has been asking me a series of questions about events in Nigeria. So he will join us in the discussion, but the person you are seeing on the screen right now is the main guest, Ambassador Yoruese Aye. I welcome you back to the studio.
Thank you, sir.
I say back because you've been here before.
Yes, indeed.
When we talked some years back about Nigeria.
Yes.
It's indeed to have you today, but unfortunate that it's a situation in which we are all sad and we are all praying that there will be a peaceful resolution to the problem. People have been hearing about Boko Haram. Boko Haram. Who are these people?
Well, first, thank you for introducing me as a former ambassador of Nigeria to Mexico and Canada. And now I am the executive director of the African Leadership Institute, a private think tank situated here in the US. And while I do not know everything about Boko Haram, because I do not live in Nigeria now, I live in the US, I have only recently come back from Nigeria, and there's a very serious sense of outrage. Outrage because the people of Nigeria have suddenly realized that they are on their own. There is a deep sense of insecurity by the citizens because the cardinal responsibility of government is to safeguard the life and property of the citizens. And if a religious militant group can go into a hostel and abduct such a large number of students, and there are conflicting stories about whether or not government or security agents were aware of it and somehow did not rise to the occasion to defend these unarmed young school children. Apart from this sense of insecurity, there's also a feeling of despondency to have watched over the years. Nigeria is a significant country in the world. Nigeria is today the 26th largest economy in the world and the largest economy on the African continent, and a country where with a population of over 175 million people, and of this population, we have 51% Muslims, and Christians about 48%, and the rest are animists and other traditional religionists. So we've watched over the years an easy calm based on relationship between ethnicity and religion. And it's not so easy to say this is who Boko Haram is unless you understand the dynamics that has brought it about. Okay. And you go back to the colonialism. Before colonialism, there were different kingdoms in Africa. And in Nigeria alone, you had over 7 kingdoms, which were empires. You had the Benin Empire, you had the Oduduwa Empire, you had the Borno Sultanate, and the
Fulani,
and the Sokoto Caliphate, which was later established in the 18th century by Sheikh Usman Danfodio. But during colonialism, the pity about Nigeria is that it was colonized at all. If it was not colonized, the various ethnic groups were somehow trading with one another before the unfortunate incident of slave trade, which was followed by colonialism, and then subsequently the main thing that was wrong with colonialism was that it happened at all, and then it did not last long enough. Mm-hmm. It looked like the British that colonized us were just there to take whatever they could and go out. Mm-hmm. And in spite of the fact that they found Nigeria with unequal development, they added to that unequal development because the South had contact with Western education, and they encouraged Western education and Christianity in the South. And they left a larger part of Nigeria, a larger population of the North, largely in the hands of the Muslim emirates, and which were controlled by the Sokoto Caliphate. And then, of course, with the Borno Empire, which had never been conquered by the Caliphate. So you had an equal distribution of resources, of education, of cultural interaction, and the North was largely left on its own by what the British described as indirect rule. The Yorubas were more cosmopolitan because in Yoruba homes you had this heritage where in every home you had some acceptance of diversity because you had Christians and you had Muslims interacting. So you were not, these were people who learned to accept diversity. On the extreme right, you had, the extreme east of Nigeria, you had the Igbos who were properly educated in the Western religion, perhaps even more educated than any other group at various times. And they are the entrepreneurs of Nigeria. The West, where the Yorubas are, they are the industrialists. And the North, largely, which was agrarian, had no other thing. So the face of poverty in Nigeria is basically the face of the North. When the British left, this inequality began to be pronounced. But the British also did something, because by leaving regions that were unequal in distribution, there was obviously a situation which at any given time, if there was free and fair election, the North would win, especially in the parliamentary system, which did not, the prime minister didn't have to win the votes of everybody in the country. All he needed was a simple majority, which the North would garner and win. And in fact, it was done with a certain air of arrogance, because the leader of the party refused to become the prime minister. He said he was happy to stay as a premier of the North, and allowed his subordinate to go and be prime minister of the whole of Nigeria. So as time went on, military coup came, and the military regime lasted for 30 years, and different things happened. Not the least of them was also activities in the international community. The IMF, the World Bank giving wrong advice to Nigeria, the economy further worsened. The economy tipped for the worse, and so we had spares of oil that came on during a brief period of the return to a civilian regime, but then the oil also went down. And at that time, critically, there was a massive brain drain of Nigerians intellectuals, the first group of Nigerian intellectuals that were trained both outside and in Nigeria to handle leadership in the country. These people went out. Then we had long spells of military rule. In addition to this, the World Bank and IMF at that time, in their structural adjustment advice to the country, did not put emphasis on tertiary education, which tertiary education is critical to the achievement of national objectives of development of any country. The end result was the universities were all broken down and became nothing. The university would go on strike for 1 year and nobody cared. There was no funding of the universities. Professors were paid less than $100 a month. And life was pretty tough. And while all this was happening, illicit arms from all the members of the UN Security Council, those countries that constitute the Security Council, small arms were finding themselves in Africa, so that the traditional mechanism for conflict resolutions in Africa then no longer mattered. Every small quarrel was resolved in the use of firearms rather than fisticuffs or even quarrel that could be resolved in a palaver hut resolution with elders. Things changed. And so in the 21st centuries, we had a new interlocutor on the stage, and this was religion. Meanwhile, Nigeria had been polarized, and one of the causes of Boko Haram was the introduction of the Sharia. And the Sharia would never have been introduced except for the fact that the Nigerian constitution, the 1979 constitution, which became the basis for 1999 constitution, stated simply and limply that no state nor the federal government was allowed to establish a state religion. Now, people interpreted that, oh, we are a secular state, we are not allowed to start to have a state religion, so we are secular. But this was not true. It meant that political groups and politicians could now actually vigorously participate in religious politics. because religion does win votes for people. It excludes, but it also brings fellow people of the same faith so that they can exclude others in their votes. The end result was the northern part of the country had a dominant Islam. And while it is not true that the whole north is Muslim, which is a wrong perception that is often given by think tanks in the United States that often prophesy there will be a war between the northern Muslims with southern Christians. The fact remains that this war, Boko Haram for instance, where these girls were abducted, is a predominantly Christian area in the farthest part of northeast. So everywhere in the north, there are Christians. There are people who are not Hausa nor Fulani, but they are glibly simply supposed to be Hausa Fulani. And this has been a very sore point because the minorities in the north have seen additional oppression apart from what the British did, because they took them and did not take care of them. They did not allow them to come out to assert their identities. They imposed Muslim emirs to be leaders of the minority groups. And so that was a different scenario altogether. The result of having and encouraging religious politics by the Constitution allowed certain militant governors in the year 2000 to establish Sharia. So Sharia was established in 12 states in the northern states. Now, how can you operate one set of rules in a whole state where you are expecting Christians and Muslims to live together in that state? And so the pretense started.
Briefly explain Sharia.
Sharia is the rule according to Islamic law. Okay. That is, if they catch you stealing a goat, they'll amputate your hand. They catch you stealing something else, they'll amputate the other hand. And if a woman is caught pregnant out of wedlock, she's supposed to be stoned to death. This kind of horrific Islamic law was supposed to be applied, and it started being applied, and there was a case in which one Amina was condemned by the Sharia court in Katsina, and it drew wide word condemnation until the Supreme Court had to lay the judgment of the Sharia court aside. So you could not operate in one country with two different legal systems. So this was the origin and genesis of Boko Haram. But even before that, we had religious crisis. The Maitatsine uprisings in 1970 and 1980. The Maitatsine uprising took place in Kano, took place in Kaduna, took place in Bauchi, took place in northeast around the area where we are talking about Boko Haram now in Burumkutu. And they were crushed within weeks. When Boko Haram started rearing its head, I remember the President Jonathan was totally confused on what next step to take, because it was easy during the military regime to do that. Now, his advisors, particularly his advisors in the United States, told him, you cannot crush them, you must go and negotiate with them because they have issues. These are economic issues. There is poverty, so perhaps poverty is the reason why they are doing this. And of course, President Jonathan comes from a particular part of the country where there were militants from the oil-producing source of that were actually, they took arms against the country because of the poor condition in which the oil companies left the indigents of the place. So the former late President Yar'Adua granted amnesty to them. So this emboldened the northern Islamic militants to also take up arms. This time they said they are Boko Haram. Boko presumably is an interpretation of all that is devious and unacceptable in Western education,
Western style of living.
and also they were reacting against anything Western. And they said, oh, it is the West that has come to corrupt us. Corruption is an element of the West, and they looked at the Western media, the Western dressing styles, the Western approach to lifestyles, and what we consider here to be a liberal life. They found it unacceptable, and they were going to bring a kind of strict form of Islam, which will further purify Sharia and make it even more to what they interpret as an Islamic way of living. And at first they started by attacking Christian churches, and then they moved on to attack Muslims who criticized them. And now they are declared war against the government, and they are holding hostages of innocent young girls and saying the most terrible things. They will sell them into slavery. They convert the Christians into Islam, and if you convert them back to Christianity, then they've committed a capital offense. So it is a bizarre movement. It's a bizarre sect. It's a horrendous agenda, and the whole world is right to rise up against this thing that has been festering for so long, which we allowed it to grow now to this gargantuan Frankensteinian proportion, that we have no choice. The whole world must come and help Nigeria and get rid of this sect immediately.
Oh boy, you have actually brought us a good foundation. For those who are listening to this, you have led us to see how the political interest and the elite position, the poverty and underdevelopment, the opium of religion, how they all combine to lead into the situation that we have in the northern part of Nigeria. Now, what is at hand at the moment is the case of these over 200 girls. And people have been condemning, people have been praising the Nigerian military and so forth. But the main thing that we are concerned with now, which probably I want you to talk about, is the involvement of other international countries, United States, Britain, France, China. They have all now sent people to Nigeria. And there are a series of questions that we want you to answer in this regard, and I will turn over to Chaka if you have some question on that line.
Mr. Ambassador, thanks for your analysis and your understanding to the conversation. So far as the people from the outside who may not necessarily understand the genesis of the situation that is really going on in Nigeria right now. But my question is, so far as the Islam is concerned, in Nigeria, what part are the Arabs playing in this?
Yeah, the Boko Haram started as a local group, drawing inspiration from Metasine, and maybe even going as far back as the Islamic revolutions in the north, considering that Islam once in a while will instigate a revolution, change government, and so on and so forth. But at the moment, their sources of financing are worrisome. Obviously, the financing and the kind of armament they have, the sophisticated armaments, their movement of large convoys of vehicles inside Nigeria alone, it leads to speculations about where and when. And people have watched the leadership of Boko Haram call on the Muslims all over the world to come to their aid. But what we also know is the fact that since the collapse of the Maghreb, the countries of the Maghreb across North Africa, places like Libya used to be very high recruiting ground because Muhammad Gaddafi actually he came to Nigeria and he said, listen to me, this country is a Muslim country and that Christianity is a religion of the West. So you are Muslims. And he was actually thinking of training people and sending them back. And several Nigerians went out to places like the Sudan. They went out to Niger. They made the Boko Haram now really, it's not a Nigerian group per se because they have camps in the Cameroons, camps in Niger, camps in Chad. And so there's an international dimension to this all. And when you look at that international dimension, including the fact that arms manufactured in places like the Soviet Union, the United States, and Britain and China find themselves into the hands of these people, then there's a certain international dimension that becomes worrisome and must be understood in order to be fully discussed and addressed.
So we can actually conclude here that it is not a religious war. It's not a Christian versus Muslim, because there are some reports that Boko Haram people, they went into churches, you know. Also, there are reports that they went into mosques.
Oh, they kill Muslims.
Christians, they kill Muslims. You know?
Yes.
So it's really...
now it's as if they want to topple the government and establish Islamic rule, which is condemned by most Islamic scholars in the world, and condemning them that what they are doing is not Islam.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, enslavement of other people, cutting people's heads off, the level of brutality is unthinkable that a sect like that should be allowed to thrive in modern world. These are crimes against humanity. They are not crimes against Nigerians. The whole humanity should rise up. In fact, this is what he's doing is perhaps will make Hitler child's play, because this is horrible.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you know, we could do this for 2 hours non-stop, but unfortunately we are limited by time. And I just have to thank you that you laid the proper foundation that I want our viewers to know, because everybody has been asking, what is Boko Haram? Who are Boko Haram? What is going on in Nigeria? Now they can see, if they listen to this program over and over, that it's something that has a deep root in the colonization of Nigeria, way, way back. So we just hope, and as we have been doing, praying, and everybody carrying placards, that we find solution to this problem as soon as possible. This is International Insight. If you want to know more about the program and know more about what is going on, you can get in touch with us at Ashe African Center. We are located at 4550 Salem Avenue, Trotwood, Ohio. Our phone number is 937-278-9235. Or you can get in touch with us via our email, yaboashe@aol.com, or go to our website, www.asheafrica.com. Until we talk, come your way again, on behalf of my two guests, Ambassador Yorose Aye and Chaka, that I always give him a nickname, which I call Chaka the Zulu. So I thank you all, and this is Funsho Oluitan. Thank you.